All right. Well, thank you guys for all coming. It ends up just being almost a mission house party, is what it is, but that's all right. So I didn't bring my notes either. So I guess God did not intend for me to have notes tonight. We watched a movie the other night called The Endurance. It's actually not a movie, but what do you call it? Documentary. A guy named Ernest Shackleton decided he wanted to be the first guy to cross Antarctica back in 1914 from pole to pole, or through the pole, from one side to the other on foot. So he gets a crew together. He goes out to get a crew together. And here was his ad. For hazardous journeys, small wages, bitter cold, long months of complete darkness, constant danger, self-return doubtful, honor and recognition in case of success. So the documentary said that there were thousands of guys who answered the ad. And he ended up putting together 27 men to go on the journey. They end up going down, getting caught in an iceberg. They end up losing the ship, living on the iceberg, towing their boats to the edge of the water, which was like 80 miles. They were like dogs pulling these boats. Got into water, ended up on a deserted island, and 3 of them decided that they were going to take their 3 boats and make one solid boat out of it and try to get back to where they started from. When they got back to the island they started from, they got back on the wrong side of the island, which had a mountain between them and the port they needed to get to. So they decided they'd cross this mountain.
And it was uncharted territory.
Yeah, completely uncharted territory. Get across the mountain, get back to their port, get to safety, put together 2 excursions to go back and pick up their crew. There are 24 men who are still back there on this deserted island. By the way, all they're eating is seals and whatever they can get their hands on, kelp, getting rained on all the time, and they don't have anything left. How they survived just doesn't even make sense. Because a lot of times it would rain in the day and it'd be below 0 at night. But 2 excursions to go back, and they can't get back to them because of the weather. And finally they get the 3rd excursion, they get back. Everyone's alive, and they get them back. And so they interviewed a lot of these guys, and they're like, if I could do it again, I'd do it again. Jesus calls together some men, and all he said was, sell everything you have and follow me. I don't have nowhere to lay my head. I don't have nowhere to rest. I don't have a home. I don't have anything. But follow me. And he gets 12 guys to answer the call, and they change the world. What I take from this is that I really believe everybody is created with a desire to do something that's worthwhile. Whether it makes any money, whether they're successful, it doesn't matter. They just want to be involved in something that means something. And I really think that the whole world's out there trying to be a part of something that means something. And a lot of them are a part of something that don't mean anything. So from a young age, honestly, early age, I can remember feeling like, I want to do something great. I just want to do something great. And I had this feeling, not that I was going to be great, that I just wanted to do something great. I didn't want my name in lights. I didn't want anything. I just wanted to be a part of something that was great. When the opportunity arose for the mission house, I knew that that's what it was. I knew that we was going to do something that was going to be great. Probably going to be a handful of people who know what I did after I die. Doesn't matter. The world's not going to know what we do, but we're going to do something great. Mainly because we're doing it in the name of God. So the reason I called this meeting, honestly, I didn't even want to have this. We was going to have it back in January, and God just kept tugging on my heart and said, no, you need to do it. And the main reason why I wanted to do this is because from the time we started the mission house in 2016, in a 5-bedroom house with one couple who we didn't even know who was homeless, 4 people who just decided to live in a house together, Had no idea what we was doing, had no idea, most of us, about the depths of depravity in the real world, even though I lived my own depraved life. We didn't really know much about addiction. We didn't really know much about homelessness. As a matter of fact, when I started the ministry, I probably would have been one of these people like the homeless people just need to go get a job, and the addicted people just need to stop doing drugs. That's who I would have been. And so God sent this couple into our lives, and Greg and Lydia, and Greg had been addicted to something his whole life. They had been in and out of homelessness for years, and God made that connection and caused me to love that guy like crazy, and he was not easy to love. Schizophrenic, liked to do math. Schizophrenia and meth don't go well together. And living with a person like that is not easy. But I love the man. And when he moved into the mission house, I don't know if he believed in God or not, but I know he was mad at God. And he was mad at Adam. And he just was so mad that Adam ate that piece of fruit and caused us all to be in this mess. But when he died, the two things that they said at his funeral was he loved his God, and his proudest thing that he ever did was be a part of the mission house. And it was just amazing. And some of the things I put that guy through, like I decided that the dirt in the yard had a hump in it. So we went out and took the hump out of the yard with shovels and wheelbarrows. And he was right there with us all the time. So from the time we started, we didn't really know what we was doing. We had no idea what our purpose was. And I took us down some rabbit holes of thinking we was going to be some kind of a rehab center, some kind of whatever. We had people shouting at us saying that we were a halfway house and they didn't want us anywhere near them. And it's just been a big mess the whole way through. And I remember saying at one of the public meetings we had to try to quell some of the people who were afraid we was going to build next to their house. And I said, I think I'm the most misunderstood man on the face of the earth. There's a song that says, "Oh Lord, I'm just a soul whose intentions are good. Oh Lord, please don't let me be misunderstood." And I felt that night with people staring at me thinking I was doing something horrible to them, that I was the most misunderstood person in the world. So hopefully tonight we can explain a little bit, because we have finally understood where we're going to be, what we're going to do for the rest of our lives. And I don't think that there's any better feeling for a person to know where you're going to live, what you're going to do, and where you're going to be for the rest of your life, and you know what your purpose is. Probably no better feeling in the world, and I can quit worrying about that. Because when we started the mission house, we just started moving people in as other people would move out. And the first year, I think we had like 25 people in and out of that place. Every one of them was homeless. Every one of them had addictions or mental illnesses. And we learned on the run. We probably learned more about addiction and mental illness in that first year of living with people than anybody could ever learn from a book or being around people. And so Kim and I got married through the process. Amazing woman who, if she was going to decide to try to do this ministry with us, and she was going to stick through that first year. And the amazing thing is we lived in the same house together, and it was such a crazy year that we hardly even talked. We were so busy just trying to figure out what in the world was going on. And some point after that first year, the whole house emptied out but one guy. And by that time, he was pretty stable. And here me and Kim are, just me and her in the house. And for the first time ever, I'm like, I think I like her. We had just never really looked at each other that way. And, pretty quickly, we decided if we're going to do this, and this is going to be our lives, we're going to get married. So we got married. We ended up tried to separate ourselves into a living room within the house. Just didn't work. And it was woman needs her own kitchen. And it was tough. And we lived in that with her, and both of us really knowing we wasn't going to live in that house for about 3 years. And we looked at property after property after property, and every property I looked at, I sat down on my drafting table and drew up a set of prints for a building. I have drawn up now 6 different buildings that we were going to have. And actually on the property we have now, I've drawn up 4 different buildings or tiny homes that we were going to do. But we finally landed, and we finally know what we're going to do. So that's one reason we're going to talk tonight, because I just want to, if nothing else, let the world know what we do, and try to quell some of the, because, honestly, a lot of it was my fault of thinking we was going to be this, thinking we was going to be that, people thinking that too, and then trying to put some kind of label on what our ministry is. So, what do we do? So the simplistics of it is we make disciples. I learned a long time ago in the Bible that the church, somewhere along the line, stopped making disciples like Jesus made disciples. They stopped taking men and women one-on-one and walking them through discipleship. And the reason of it is because our world is just so separated that even getting together is a hard thing to do nowadays. And when I began to pray about this, God gave me a vision clear back. The book I have out there was written in 2008. And I began to look into what is out there where Christians are living in communities together. And even back in 2008, the internet wasn't that great. But I found one community where a group of people had bought an old decrepit neighborhood that nobody was living in anymore. And they began to fix houses back up. And Christians began to move into this neighborhood, and they put up a center in the middle of it. And they would go out and do their jobs in the day, but when they come back to the neighborhood at night, they were in a living community of people. I'm like, that's it. That's the book of Acts. That's people coming together, sharing life together, living together, and that's what I want to do. And so for the next 10 years, everybody who I would share that with would kind of look at it and be like, oh, that's nice. Oh, that's nice. Who's going to move out of their house into another house for the purpose of living in Christian community? And it was just nobody interested. So 2016 hits. I get to an end of a marriage that should have been ended long ago. And God just opened that up and said, I want you to buy this house on Sacramento. So I ran it past my Bible study group at the time, and there were 2 people, Kim and Owen, who said, I'm in. I was living with my daughter because I left the house. I would have rather been homeless to be in that marriage. So I was literally living on my daughter's couch. And we bought this 5-bedroom house and moved into it. And my daughter's like, I'm in too. So all 4 of us move in, and before that ever even happened, we met Greg and Lydia, who were losing their place, and they moved in first. Didn't even know who they were. And that's really the story of the Mission House. Is I can remember somewhere around 6 months in, we had 3 or 4 people living with us who we didn't know. They were homeless. We moved them in. And Kim and I was the only 2 left out of that 4. And we was going to our job every day, and the people were staying at the house. And I'm like, yeah, I think if we're going to move people in our house we don't know, maybe somebody should quit their job and stay here. So I quit a $60,000 a year job, and I've never known that it happened. I've never missed a dime of it. So fast forward, we're trying to find a place so that we can have our own spot and we can create housing where people aren't slammed together in a 5-bedroom house. So we end up finding a place down here on the corner of Esther and Elijah. And every road in our neighborhood has a biblical name. So we make disciples. We're trying to make people who are going to turn around and make disciples and turn around and make disciples. And the idea is to do it like Jesus did it. We take them one-on-one. We live life with them. We're there as much as we're together. We're making friends. We become friends, and we're just trying to share the Bible and how it's done. And I always say a disciple is just somebody who you not only teach, I mean, the church is teaching people, but they're not taking people and going and doing on-the-job training. And that's what we want to do. We want to do on-the-job training. So once we are making disciples, the second most important thing that we do are trying to do is build community. And ultimately what our goal is to build a living community right down there in that neighborhood, as we can buy up old houses that are abandoned, falling apart, put those houses back together, get people moved in there. The two part of this is some people need housing because of their life situation, but our further plan is what we know that God's already told me, that eventually other people are going to look and say, I want to be a part of that, and they're going to move out of their house and they're going to move down there. And so somewhere along the line, God said, what would happen if there was a city that were full of Christians who were completely healed, completely restored, and completely stable? And in that, then you take somebody who's broken and you put him in that city of people. What would it do for that person? And that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to create a community of people who have been healed and stabilized and living a good life, and then bring the broken people into that situation and blow their minds, is really what we want to do. So that's basically what we do. Discipleship means that we go out together. We come together, we teach, we come together, we learn, but then we go out and we do it together. So everything really outflows from that of what we do. And so we connect with like Simple Street, Sisters of Solace, anybody that we can connect with, and try to go out and take the people we're making disciples out of and get them involved in outreach. And so that's, once we're making disciples, the outflow, when we talk about what did Jesus do, I mean, if you really put down a list of what Jesus did, it would be a huge list. Because he was taking his disciples around and feeding people and teaching people and talking to people and going to synagogues. I mean, they were just doing everything that came in front of their path. And that's what we're trying to do with people. That's what we do. Why do we do it? So, when I became a Christian, it was like I found everything that I've been looking for my whole life. Once I heard the gospel, and once I heard the book of Luke was what was being taught on the first church I ever went to. And it was like, this is everything that I've been looking for my whole life. Everything began to make sense. I got involved with the pastor, doing outreach, doing ministry, and that church split because of some ugliness. I ended up in another church, end up in another church, end up in another church. And the more I read the Bible, the more I'm like, there's a whole lot that's in this Bible that's not going on. It's just not going on. The things that Jesus did, so much of it is not happening. Why is it not happening? And so I finally landed in a church that I thought was just the best thing in the world, and ended up flipping its top. And God just told me, if you want to do what I did, it starts with making disciples. It starts with taking people by the hand and mentoring them and going out and taking them out and doing it, and then reproducing yourself in them. And you don't need a building to do that. You don't need anything. All you need is a person. All you need is a willing person. And that's all we're really looking for, is willing participants. So why we do this is because at some point, it just came out of my mind, I have been working so hard at so many things my whole life that just don't seem to work. I've been in systems that just don't work. And I'm tired of working my tail off in systems where it's the system that's broken. It's the system that's broken. I can't function in this system. And so let's create something that may work. Amen. That's why we do it. Who are we? Well, most of us here are we. But really, we are just the body of Christ. That's who we are. I want to talk about the people who are directly involved in what we do, but the reality of it is anybody who wants to go out and make disciples, anybody who wants to go out and share the gospel, that's who we are. And we want to be a part of everybody who's doing that. And we want to find who they are. So, my wife, obviously, and I oversee this entire thing, which really doesn't amount to that much overseeing this. When you live, and I'll talk about it in a minute, when you live at your place of business, it's not really hard to run the business because it just runs itself. We bought a mobile home that was falling apart, and I hated it from the moment we got it. But the only reason, and I know now, the only reason why I got that mobile home was to get Billy. Because if I hadn't had that mobile home, I hadn't had a place for Billy to stay, he wouldn't be with us. And Billy has just become one of us. And like Greg was our first beginning, our second beginning, the first guy God gives us is the guy we need. You know, he makes no mistakes. And so we've got several people who just help us do what we do. Skip takes care of our recovery group. And it's just amazing. It's just amazing how people are coming along and doing what we do. So who are we? We are anybody who wants to be involved in making disciples and sharing the gospel. And we'll talk at the end a little bit about maybe how everybody could be involved. So this is an interesting thing. The collective impact approach is premised on the belief that no single policy, government, department, organization, or program can tackle or solve the increasingly complex social problems we face as a society. The approach calls for multiple organizations or entities from different sectors to abandon their own agenda in favor of a common agenda, shared measurement, and alignment of effort. Unlike collaborative or partnership, collective impact initiatives have centralized infrastructure known as a backbone organization with dedicated staff whose role is to help participating organizations shift from acting alone to acting in concert. This is all about a worldly concept, but there's really no reason why this can't just be the church. I mean, just because you have a different name on the outside of your building doesn't mean we can't work together. And the reality of it is I firmly believe that the social problems we have in this country are the church's problems. It's not the social welfare problems. And until the churches decide that they can get together collectively and work together, the church is never going to solve the problem. And so we've kind of come to the understanding that for the most part, the churches aren't going to do that. But there are a lot of little groups out there that are out doing something. And, you know, right across the street, Southside Youth Outreach, Simple Street. And what we're beginning to see is this group of people who are flowing all the way around different ministries in town, supporting one another, and it grows it. And so that's one thing that we have done as the Mission House all along, is if you're doing something and you need help, we'll be there. And we're going to bring as many people as we can. And it's this collaborative effort of being the church without a name. Right? So, this is our board. I think almost most of them are here. Very thankful for everybody there. So where are we? So we are down here south of town as you get ready to head out on 59 Highway like you're going towards Atchison. We're in a little neighborhood down there. A lot of houses are falling apart. A lot of trouble like everywhere else. And we're smack down in the middle of it. So this is where we have landed. We have, actually, if you see the blue square on the bottom left, that is a 3-bedroom mobile home that we bought. It was, when we moved there, it was a trap house. It was just a bunch of homeless people living there. really homeless people from the neighborhood. They weren't, some of them weren't homeless, they were just there because it was where the party was. The electricity was shut off, the water was shut off, and we just knew that we had to get that place. And so tracked down the true owner, bought it for $1,000, went in there and completely restored the house. These are some of the pictures of what we've done. But the reality of the house is beautiful now. And it was, the floors were falling in, the roof was caved in. The city wanted to tear it down. They had red tagged it, they wanted to tear it down. But we restored it, and it's a beautiful house now. And it just begins to build into, what do? Well, we restore things. We restore lives through Christ. We restore houses, we restore properties. We restore anything that needs to be restored. So how do we do this? Well, let's just look at our economics. We live at our place of our business. We have no salaries. There are no salaries at the Mission House. We are debt-free and we will stay debt-free. We are ultra-conservative. We are streamlined. So everything that I do, well, not everything, but 90% of what I do, I buy on Marketplace for 10 cents on the dollar. We network resources, and the reality of it is, all these little ministries that are going around, there are some nights where I think we had one full week where we didn't eat at home. Like, we went to Southside Youth Outreach and helped them, and we ate there. And we went to Simple Street and ate some hot dogs, whatever, you know. So everywhere we go, there's food. And so if we have 5 days in a row where we're going out and helping another ministry, we're eating there and, you know, save a lot of money. But we network resources, and I don't think I think that was left over. I don't think our operating costs last year was $12,000. I think we're upwards around closer to $20,000. But we're housing three guys plus Kim and I. You know, they take care of their own food. They take care of their own lives. But to do this ministry for less than $20,000 a year, I think is pretty good. And it's the reality of it is because we don't have any salaries. So the way this works is when a guy moves in, if they don't have a job, then there's a grace period. That grace period is until the first paycheck. At the first paycheck, it starts at $75 a month. And that $75 runs until the first 3 months. And then it begins to increase until at 6 months, you're at $75 a week. And then at 3 months, it begins to increase until you're finally paying $125 a week. Basically, it goes from $300 a month to $500 a month, and that caps out. And with that, we become profitable. So we take that money, and that's, to me, like, I feel like the guys who stay with us, I can tell them, the money that you're paying to stay here, some of it is paying the bills here, but some of it also is paying for us to go out and feed this homeless guy, or some of it's going out for us to go help somebody get some clothes. And so some of it is going into an account that will eventually build more housing. And so 90% of our income comes from the guys that are staying with us. And then we have a few givers who give a nice small amount, but it all goes straight into a fund that's going to build more housing. That's how we do it. It's really simple. And when you have that idea of people sharing, we share lawnmowers, you know. I think I got that up here too. I guess I don't. Yeah, I mean, we just share everything. So if somebody needs something, it's really the simple idea of, I need some sugar, so I go to my neighbor and get some sugar. But in a lot of neighborhoods, you don't do that anymore. You know, people still sit on their porches, but they don't sit on their porches anymore. So, I mean, this is really just a simple idea of living in a neighborhood where everyone is working together to help each other. And that's what we're looking to do. So, our future, well, right now, sitting at the city, And all I gotta do up there is go up and get the permits, because it's ready to go. We're gonna build some duplexes. This is just an idea, so kind of use your imagination. That's exactly what they'll look like. Side by side, two duplexes. There'll be one facing it, so the whole thing's gonna look like a U. There'll be two duplexes looking at each other with a courtyard in the middle, and then there'll be a single unit looking in, so the whole thing looks like a U with a courtyard in the middle. This is just something I pulled off to kind of give an idea of how our porches are gonna look. There's another one, just a picture of this. That's probably really close to what it'll look like if you see that as a duplex. And then that is the color schemes and the porch ideas that we come up with that we really like. So that's it. So hopefully that is a little understanding of what we do. Some of you might have got handed something when you came in of ways you can help. And I really came up with, there's about 7 ways on here that you can help, and it doesn't cost you a dime. So one is donating construction materials. I mean, we're gonna be picky about, we're all gonna use what we need, but people are donating construction materials to different organizations in town. You can donate it to us. By the way, we are a 501c3, so everything that's given to us is tax deductible. Give us your Menards rebates. If you're buying stuff at Menards and not taking the time to send the rebate in, that's cash to us.